My wife screamed at me for buying groceries instead of a perso. I returned everything, took the kids, and filed quietly while she slept them, a 34-year-old husband and father of 2. And for as long as I can remember, my life has revolved around one thing, stretching every dollar to keep my family afloat. I work long hours, cut corners where I can, and even skip small indulgences for myself so my kids never have to feel like they're going without. When I walk through the grocery store aisles, I'm not just picking up food, I'm calculating how long a pack of chicken will last, how many meals I can squeeze from a bag of rice, how to make sure my children have enough milk until the next paycheck hits. My wife, on the other hand, lives in a completely different world. She's obsessed with expensive handbags, brand-name shoes, and the newest gadgets. She says she deserves them because she works hard just existing as a wife and mother. Meanwhile, I'm constantly trimming away from necessities, returning items at checkout, choosing generic brands. Skipping snacks for myself, because those extra dollars matter. I've tried to explain it to her before. We need food more than another purse, I'd say quietly, hoping she'd understand, but she would roll her eyes, sigh dramatically, and mutter, "You never want me to have anything nice." Those words sting, because it's not about denying hurts, about survival. I can still remember one night sitting at the kitchen table with bills scattered everywhere, the smell of reheated leftovers filling the room. She came in scrolling her phone, showing me pictures of a designer bag she wanted, while I was wondering how to pay for school supplies. It hit me then. She wasn't even looking at the same life I was. That was the first crack in the foundation. The moment I realized our values weren't just different, they were colliding, and that collision was only beginning. It started like any other Tuesday. I had just gotten off a double shift, my eyes heavy and my shirt still smelling faintly of grease and sweat. On the way home, I stopped at the store and spent just under $80 on groceries: milk, cereal, a pack of chicken thighs, some fruit for the kids' lunchboxes. Nothing extravagant, just the essentials. The moment I walked in and set the bags on the kitchen counter, she spun around like I'd just insulted her. She snapped. I blinked, confused. Groceries. We were out of everything. Her voice rose instantly. I told you I needed that purse. We agreed that was going to be my week. But you went and blew our money on food. I looked down at the bags of Paul's eggs, a loaf of bread, and then back at her, stunned. The kids need to eat. You haven't cooked in 3 days. What was I supposed to do? She was shaking, red in the face, eyes wild, the kind of anger that didn't match the situation. I noticed our youngest standing in the doorway, silently watching with his little hands clutching a toy car. You always find a way to make me feel worthless, she yelled, pacing the room like a storm. You don't care about me. You don't love me. You just want me to live like some peasant while you play provider? I stayed quiet, not because I agreed, but because I was tired, exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Later that night, I caught our daughter scribbling in her notebook. When I asked what she was drawing, she said, "A quiet house, one where no one yells." That cut deeper than anything my wife had said. And I realized the damage wasn't just between us anymore. It was leaking into our children. It wasn't until much later that I started connecting the dots. Her reactions, her rage, the way she expected to be catered to it, wasn't random. It was learned. She grew up as the only daughter in a wealthy family. Her parents threw money at every problem. Bad grades, a private tutor, temper tantrums, a new toy. She was never told no. Even now, her father still slips her cash behind my back, and her mother constantly tells her, "You deserve more than a simple life." When we were dating, I thought it was harmless, cute even. I'd take her out. She'd order 3 appetizers and a $12 smoothie she wouldn't finish. I'd joke about budgeting, and she'd laugh like I was pretending. But after marriage, it stopped being funny. There were tantrums when we couldn't afford the newest iPhone. She once maxed out a credit card on designer shoes, then cried when I got upset, accusing me of controlling her. "You knew who I was when you married me," she'd hiss. "Don't act surprised now." She'd manipulate me with that line over and over, and I'd fall for it. Every time. I remember one night when we were arguing about bills. I had just come home from dropping off an application for a second job. She was sitting on the couch in a brand new robe she'd ordered online, sipping wine, scrolling her tablet. I said, "We're behind on rent," she replied without looking up. "All wives deserve luxury." You want me to feel special, don't you? That was the moment I knew this wasn't about partnership. It was about performance. I was the supporting actor in her fantasy, and any time I didn't follow the script, she rewrote the scene with guilt. But the script was wearing thin, and soon it would start to tear. We were at her cousin's birthday dinner, the first time it happened in front of everyone. I had just finished helping the waiter rearrange tables to fit our group. Still sweating slightly under my button-down, I slid into the seat next to her. She was already a couple glasses in, laughing too loud, tossing her hair like we were in some rom-com. Then, out of nowhere, she turned to the group and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Can you believe my husband hasn't bought me a single nice thing in months? Not even flowers." Laughter erupted. Her aunt smirked. Someone chimed in, "Time to step it up, man." I forced a smile, cheeks burning, heart pounding. It was a lie. I had gotten her a necklace on our anniversary just 3 weeks before. I had sacrificed my lunch breaks to make time for it, had even handwritten a note. She barely acknowledged it. But in that moment, she wasn't joking. She was rewriting the narrative right in front of people who didn't know the truth. Later that night, when I brought it up in the car, she scoffed. It was just a joke. "God, why are you so sensitive?" "Because it made me feel like trash," I whispered. She laughed under her breath. "Maybe if you actually bought me something worth talking about, I wouldn't have to say it." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how something so small could feel so cruel. But that was the game: gaslight, deflect, and humiliate. In private, she played victim. In public, she made me the joke. And the scariest part was, I had stopped defending myself. It was a stupid accident, really. She left her phone unlocked on the nightstand while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But a message popped up from her best friend, and I glanced without thinking. What I read made my stomach turn. "Girl, if I had to fake it for 5 years just to get bags and vacations, I would too. You re-smart, use him while you can." And her reply, LOL, right? "I didn't marry him for love. I married him for stability. He's too nice to leave me." My hands went cold. My chest tightened like a vice. I stared at the screen, hoping prying it was a sick joke. But it wasn't the only message. There were dozens more. Screenshots of our fights. Complaints about my cheap ass, her bragging that I'd never have the guts to walk away. That night, I sat alone on the balcony while she slept inside. The city buzzed quietly in the distance, the kind of silence that feels loud. I remembered every time I skipped meals to make sure she had what she wanted. Every time I swallowed my pride during her public jabs. Every time I told myself it's just stress. She loves me. But she didn't. She loved what I provided. She loved the comfort, the safety net, the illusion. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, heartbroken, humiliated, and furious. But beneath all that, something colder settled in. Resolve. I wasn't going to blow up. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I was going to watch, learn, and plan, because for the first time in years, I stopped wondering how to fix it and started asking how to leave. After that night, something in me just shut down. I still went through the motions: work, chores, school drop-offs, but I was hollow inside. Like I was watching my own life from a distance. Every word she said, every demand she made, felt like a reminder that I was nothing more than a tool to her. One evening, I came home after picking up extra hours. I had skipped lunch and dinner just to afford the kids' field trip fees and a few pantry staples. My hands ached from overtime labor. My back felt like it had bricks strapped to it. She was on the couch, legs up, scrolling her tablet, a half-eaten sushi tray beside her. "Did you get the purse?" she asked, not even looking up. "No," I said flatly. "I got groceries," she exploded. "You're useless. What kind of man can't buy his wife one nice thing?" She screamed out. Our son peeked out from the hallway. He looked scared. Our daughter pulled him back gently and whispered something I couldn't hear. My heart cracked. Not because of her words, but because of theirs. Later that night, I found a crayon drawing taped to the kids' bedroom door. It was of my stick figure styles, smiling, holding their hands. Underneath, in messy lettering, it said, "We love when Daddy is calm." That broke me. I went into the bathroom, turned on the faucet so no one would hear, and sobbed into a towel. Not loud, just broken. I wasn't a husband anymore. I wasn't even a full person. I was a paycheck with legs, a target for rage, a shell, and yet, something inside me whispered, "This can't be forever." The next morning, the kids were still asleep when she started in again. I had placed the grocery bags on the counter, basic stuff: cereal, rice, some frozen veggies, and eggs. Before I could even take my shoes off, she looked inside one and sneered. "So we're still playing poor, huh?" she said, shaking her head. I didn't respond. I just stared at her as she plucked out a carton of eggs like it offended her. "Asterisk, you don't respect me," she continued. "You'd rather feed the house than make me feel like a woman. It's embarrassing." That was it. The match to gasoline. Without a word, I grabbed the bags, loaded them back into the car, and drove straight to the store. The clerk looked confused as I returned every single item. He scanned each barcode, occasionally glancing up at me. I didn't say much, just nodded, keeping my voice even. When I got home, I placed the receipt on the kitchen counter like a trophy. She looked at it, then at me, her face twisting in disbelief. "What's this?" she asked. "Your purse money," I said calmly. She froze, and then she erupted, screaming, throwing a spoon across the room, pacing like a lunatic. But I wasn't watching her. I was watching our kids. They were curled up on the staircase, peeking through the railings, eyes wide. And for the first time, I saw it in their faces. This wasn't just affecting me. This was shaping them, teaching them what love looked like, what normal was, and that terrified me more than anything, because at that moment, I realized she didn't just devalue me, she was poisoning them too. After that fight, I stopped raising my voice. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped trying to be heard. Instead, I started watching. And planning. I began stashing copies of every bill she'd ignored: electric, rent, the kids' medical expenses I'd paid out of pocket. I pulled our bank statements, highlighting her reckless spending. I took pictures of every receipt I could find: purses, shoes, spa visits. All while we were behind on rent. At night, while she scrolled TikTok beside me in bed, I'd researched custody laws. I learned that financial neglect, especially with children involved, could make a difference in court. I learned that if I wanted a shot at full custody, I needed proof, and I collected it quietly. She didn't notice. She was too busy mocking me, too sure I was spineless. One night, as she drifted off mid-rant, something about me not being man enough, I looked over at her sleeping face, peaceful. I wondered if she'd ever feel that peace again once I left. I lay there in the dark, listening to the kids breathing down the hall, and made a vow. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't break. I wouldn't give her the explosion she expected. No, I single quotes leave in silence. I'd move with purpose. I'd get my children out of this war zone, because the scariest part wasn't that she hated me. It was that she didn't love them not the way they deserved. And I wasn't going to let that be their story. With every quiet step I took toward leaving, something strange began to happen. My kids started clinging to me more. It wasn't dramatic, just little things. They'd follow me into the kitchen while I cooked, sit beside me while I sorted bills, ask to help fold laundry, even if they didn't do it right. One night, I was making spaghetti from what we had left in the pantry: no meat, just sauce and noodles. I stirred the pot slowly, the steam rising into my face, and I felt small arms wrap around my waist. "Daddy," my daughter whispered, "we like it when you make dinner. It feels calm." I turned, trying to smile through the knot in my throat. She looked up and added, "Can we always eat like this? Just us?" And just like that, a flicker of light cracked through the heavy dark. That weekend, while their mother went out shopping with her sister, I took the kids to the park. We packed sandwiches, kicked a soccer ball, laughed until our cheeks hurt. There were no screams, no lectures, just space to breathe. On the way home, my son said, "When you're happy, we feel safe." It hit me then my happiness mattered, not just for me, but for them. They weren't just watching me endure. They were learning how to love, how to cope, how to survive. And if I stayed in this chaos, they'd grow up thinking this was normal. No, I couldn't fix their mother, but I could save them from becoming her. And I could save myself from disappearing entirely. The night I left didn't feel like a movie. There was no dramatic music, no heroic rush, just quiet. Heavy, aching quiet. She had screamed at me earlier something about a bill I forgot to pay, even though she'd spent $300 that same day on skincare. The fight ended with her slamming the bedroom door, muttering, "You're lucky I haven't left you yet." As her breathing deepened under the covers, I sat on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, keys in my pocket. Backpack by the door, the house creaked under its own tension. The kids were already asleep, backpacks packed earlier that day, under the excuse of cleaning up. I moved like a go-slow, silent, focused. I lifted my daughter first, careful not to wake her, wrapping her in a blanket. Then my son. He stirred, blinked up at me and whispered, "Where are we going?" I leaned down and said, "Someplace better." We crept through the front door, the porch light buzzing faintly overhead. I closed the car door gently, the click of it sealing something final dot as I started the engine. I looked back at the house, the place I thought I'd build a family, find peace. But it had become a battlefield, and I was done being a casualty. I drove through the night, headlights stretching forward like hope. My son fell back asleep in his car seat. My daughter held my hand from the back seat, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine like an anchor dot by sunrise. I had already filed the papers. I sat in the courthouse parking lot as the sun climbed the horizon, casting gold across the windshield. It was over, quietly, permanently, finally over. She woke up to an empty house. No kids, no sound. No me dot. I had blocked her number the night before, but that didn't stop her. She used her sister's phone first, then her friends, then her work line. By mid-morning, my inbox was a minefield voice. Messages? They swung from desperate to violent in seconds. "You kidnapped my children. Please come back. I didn't mean it. I'll destroy you in court. You won't see them again." I didn't respond. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. The texts I had found, the spending logs, the receipts, they were now in my custody petition. Everything I had gathered during those months of silence was laid bare before the court. I had proof of her neglect, her cruelty, her manipulation. Still, she tried to twist the narrative, claimed I was abusive, claimed the kids weren't safe. But every time she opened her mouth in court, she showed the exact behavior I'd documented, and something changed. People started to see it. Her sister, who once called me too uptight, apologized and said, "I didn't know it was that bad." My best friend, who had warned me years ago, just nodded and said, "Took you long enough." Man, even the judge looked her over during one of her outbursts and said calmly, "This isn't a fashion show. This is a custody hearing. You might want to focus." It wasn't fast. It wasn't clean. But it was moving in my direction. For the first time in years, I wasn't being gaslit. I wasn't being laughed at. I was being heard. And she was finally being seen for exactly who she was. It took 7 months of hearings, interviews, evaluations, and endless paperwork. But in the end, the court awarded me primary custody. She was granted visitation, but with strict conditions. Parenting classes, financial disclosures, supervised weekends. She threw a fit in the hallway after the ruling, screaming at the judge, at me, at her own lawyer. She called me a thief, a coward, a manipulator. I didn't say a word. I just walked past her, holding my daughter's hand, my son trailing close behind. We moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the quieter side of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, peaceful. The first night there, we all sat on the floor, eating pizza from the box. No TV, no background noise, just laughter. "Just breathing," my daughter whispered. "This feels like a home." And that's when it hit me this whole time. I wasn't trying to escape her. I was trying to build something they'd never had, a place where love wasn't a transaction, where affection wasn't earned with gifts, where yelling wasn't the soundtrack of their childhood. She still tries, of course. Sends long messages about how I ruined her life, posts photos of herself crying online, claiming I stole everything, but I don't reply. I don't even read them anymore, because every morning I wake up to sleepy hugs, 2 cereal bowls clinking, too quiet, to peace dot, and when I look in the mirror, I don't see a broken man. I see a father who fought for his kids, a man who walked away before he became unrecognizable. People say the final straw was Groceries, but it was never about groceries. It was survival versus vanity, and for once, survival won.